Howdy folks, and welcome to what is sadly not going to be an episode of Mingles with Jingles, and the reason it is not an episode of Mingles with Jingles is because I spent most of the day yesterday in London, at the Olympia, attending London Film and Comic Con. First I have to give a shout out and a massive apology to the very first person who recognised me there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stop and say hello and get a picture taken because I only had 2 minutes left to make my first photo shoot. I was running kind of late. And that first photo shoot was with Andrew Robinson, who you probably won't recognise, thanks to all the makeup, as Garrick, just plain simple Garrick the Tailor from Deep Space Nine, although of course he got his start playing the Scorpion Killer in Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood, and then went on to star in Hellraiser 2. He's an absolutely lovely man, and always a pleasure to meet. Then it was time to get my aliens on, starting with Mark Rolston, who it has to be said is looking pretty damn impressive for a man in his 60s. Mark Rolston has been in all kinds of things. He played the sadistic prisoner Boggs in The Shawshank Redemption. He was in Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. He was in The Departed. He had a recurring role in 24, but most people probably know him as Private Drake, the smart gunner, alongside Vasquez in Aliens. Speaking of aliens, I was incredibly lucky to get the opportunity, because let's face it, none of us are getting any younger, to meet the amazing Lance Henriksen, who's 81 years old now. Lance Henriksen, of course, has been in all kinds of things. He was the villain in Hard Target alongside Jean-Claude Van Damme. He was in Aliens vs. Predator. He played the vampire Jesse Hooker in Near Dark. He even starred in the Omen series of horror movies in the 70s, but he is, of course, most famous for the recurring role of the android Bishop in the Aliens movies. Next up was Ming Nan, a Hong Kong Chinese actress who, believe it or not, is 7 years older than me and looks amazing for her age. You probably know her from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., although she has managed to recently turn a recurring role as a bounty hunter in The Mandalorian into a co-starring role alongside Tamira Morrison in the Boba Fett spin-off TV show. As you can probably tell by looking at the picture, she is absolutely tiny. She does not look that short on the TV. I mean, I suppose that depends how big your TV is, but, I mean, when you see her in The Mandalorian and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she doesn't look like a midget, but she really, really is. She's absolutely minuscule. I did not recognise her the first time I saw her. I was standing in line waiting to go in and get my picture taken with her, and when she turned up, there was a whole bunch of people making a fuss behind me, and I turned around. I didn't understand what was going on. And there was this tiny little Asian woman taking selfies with the crowd. And I thought, who is this person? And it took me a few seconds to realise this was the person I was in line to have my picture taken with. She's tiny. But she was great. I mean, she was one of the nicest people I've ever met at one of these conventions. And it does have to be said, for somebody who's 58 years old, she does look incredible. Anyway, you may have been wondering, what's with all the biker gear jingles? Well, that's because the TV show Sons of Anarchy is one of my guilty pleasures. And 3 of the stars of Sons of Anarchy were present at London Film and Comic Con this year. Mark Boone Jr., who played Bobby Elvis Munson in the show, and also had a role in The Mandalorian. It's funny how many of the people at LFCC this year ended up in The Mandalorian in one way or another. The veteran character actor Tommy Flanagan, who played the character Chibs Telford in the show, and he's been around for donkey's years as well. The first thing I can remember seeing him in was Braveheart, but, well, he's been basically working continuously ever since. And finally, Kim Coates, who played the Club Master-at-Arms Tig Traeger in the show. Again, Kim Coates has been around forever, and he's looking pretty damn good for a 63-year-old. The first thing I remember seeing him in, although it wasn't his first movie role, was the 1991 Bruce Willis movie, The Last Boy Scout. He didn't have a big role. He was basically beating on Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis said, "Touch me one more time and I'll kill you." And so he smacked Bruce Willis again. Bruce Willis punched him once in the nose, drove the bone splinters into his brain, killed him standing. And then he sat down, lit a cigarette and said, "I told him." And that was his role in The Last Boy Scout. He has, of course, been in many, many other things since then. He was in Black Hawk Down. He was in Waterworld. He was in The Client. He was unfortunately also in Pearl Harbor and Battlefield Earth, but neither of those were his fault. Fortunately for him, and fans of good television everywhere, he then went on to star in 92 episodes of Sons of Anarchy before that show was eventually cancelled. And that is why, instead of listening to an episode of Mingles with Jingles, you are instead looking at pictures of famous people who haven't died yet. Because we spent the whole day in London, instead of at home, recording a proper episode of Mingles with Jingles. You might be wondering who I mean when I say we spent the whole day in London. I did, of course, go to London Film and Comic Con this year with my very good wingman, incompetent camera minion Eddie. And while he was there, he met Bond girl Mariam Darbo, star of Game of Thrones and Harry Potter, Natalia Tena, who actually also had a role in The Mandalorian. There definitely seems to be a Mandalorian thing going around recently. And of course, probably the world's greatest living Englishman, the absolutely legendary Brian Blessed. And that is why you're looking at pictures of famous people who haven't died yet, instead of listening to an episode of Mingles with Jingles. I do apologise, but yes, I know, Akazuki missed me all day as well. It's okay, I'm home. Look, we'll have tickles and scratches and foodies in a moment, but I'm saying goodbye to all the nice people on the YouTubes. Can I do that? Do you want to say goodbye as well? No? Okay. Yes, I cruelly and maliciously abandoned her all day, and now I have to pay the price for it. So I'm going to go to pamper my pussy. Read into that what you will. Probably a lot funnier in my head. And in the meantime, I hope you weren't too disappointed by the absence of Mingles with Jingles today. And of course, as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.